Emotional Abuse by Isabella, Bailey, Caitlin, Olivia, and Leslie. Emotional Abuse by Isabella, Bailey, Caitlin, Olivia, and Leslie. Emotional abuse is when a child experiences harm to their mental, social, or emotional development. Parents or caregivers are the most common abusers by acting in a way that harms the child's self-esteem. Children who are emotionally abused are at higher risk of developing depression, anxiety, or substance abuse. There are many forms of emotional abuse that abusers use. Children are at higher risk for developing these psychological disorders because when their self-esteem is harmed, it creates issues with their emotional regulation. Also, children who are typically emotionally abused tend to experience sexual or physical abuse as well. The combination of this abuse leads to more significant and severe psychological disorders. Forms of emotional abuse. Rejecting can be done in multiple different ways by the abuser. The ways include telling the child they are not wanted, not showing validation towards the child's feelings, or breaking promises. Shaming a child is done by harming their feeling of self-worth. Examples include name-calling, criticizing, or mocking. Terrorizing is threatening the child with abandonment, harm, or even death. Other examples include screaming, manipulating, and blaming. Isolating is done by the abuser by keeping the child confined to small areas. This can be done by keeping the child away from peers, activities, or other fun experiences. When a parent corrupts their child, this means that they encourage bad behavior, and they also can do this by justifying bad behavior.
Effects at school. Here are some ways in which children are affected by emotional abuse in school. Low self-esteem, anxiety, trust issues, social anxiety and self-isolation, inability to make friends, and depression.
How emotional abuse affects children at home. Children are most commonly emotionally abused by parents or caregivers. This causes significant damages to their attachment styles. Children who are emotionally abused tend to form insecure attachment styles. This style of attachment is associated with issues in emotional regulation and self-esteem.
Effects at home continued. A child who is being abused at home will often perform one or more of the following tasks. They might lock themselves in their bedroom, avoid leaving their room as much as possible. They might constantly ask their parents if they're mad or upset with them and continue until the parent does get mad or upset with them. They might be forced to do chores as a punishment rather than as a weekly task. They might get asked, "Are you done doing this task or that task?" And then once they say yes, they'll continue to ask, "Well, did you do this or that or this or that?" until the parent makes the child feel guilty for not doing everything around the house. And lastly, a child might follow their parent around so they feel like they aren't lonely, both on the parent's side and the child's side.
How emotional abuse affects children later in life. Emotional abuse has a short-term impact, but it also has a long-term impact. Children can get emotional abuse by different people other than their parents. There are many signs we can tell emotional abuse on a child. For example, seems unconfident, struggles with emotions, and difficult making friendships. With being able to see the signs of emotional abuse, we are able to see how emotional abuse affects a child later in life. To continue later in life, here are some examples of emotional abuse later in life. We have learning disabilities, anxiety, sleep problems, social withdrawal, suicide thoughts, doubting self-worth and abilities, depression, and many more. A child can have any of these later in life, and it can stick with them throughout their life. We have to see how emotional abuse can have such an impact on someone's life.
To summarize our PowerPoint, emotional abuse happens to a lot more people in the world than the people might think. Some people might even be getting emotionally abused and not realize it's happening to them. Anything that somebody says that makes you feel sad or self-conscious is emotional abuse. It can come in many forms, including shaming, rejecting, terrorizing, isolating, and corrupting. Emotional abuse can affect children at home, in school, in social situations, and even later on in life. If you or somebody you know needs help, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233.